Welcome to our deep dive today. You submitted some research about AI oversight, and it's got us both thinking about how AI models are being judged and trained. The paper is called Great Models Think Alike, and this undermines AI oversight, and it's pretty thought-provoking.
Yeah, one of the things that really stood out to me was how they're using large language models, LLMs, as judges to evaluate other AIs.
Like AI judging AI, huh? So are we going to see robots in courtrooms with little gavels?
Maybe not that dramatic, but the implications are huge. What they found is that these AI judges, much like human judges, can show something called affinity bias. Basically, they tend to favor models that are similar to themselves.
So if an AI is evaluating other AIs, it might give a high score to one that uses a similar architecture or was trained on similar data, even if it's not objectively the best performer. That sounds like it could be a problem.
Exactly. The researchers give this specific example with an AI judge called QWin 2.572B Instruct, and they found it consistently scored a similar model called QWin 2.57B Instruct higher than a more capable model called Llama 3.170B Instruct, simply because they were similar.
How did they actually measure this bias? What made them think that the llama model was really better?
Well, they use a combination of a new metric called CAPA, or AOP, and an established benchmark called MMLU-CRO. So this let them analyze not just if two models agreed on an answer, but also how they got to that answer. It kind of reveals the similarities in their decision-making.
Okay, so we've got these AI judges maybe playing favorites, but the research also talks about AIs actually training each other. They call it weak to strong generalization, where a less capable AI helps to train a stronger one. Did they set up a virtual classroom or something?
Not exactly a classroom, but the idea is that this weak supervisor AI annotates data, and then the stronger AI model learns from those annotations. What's interesting is that they found the more different the weak supervisor and the strong student are, the more the student actually learns.
Wow. Really? That's surprising. I would have thought an AI would learn best from a teacher that's already really good at something.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive. But think about it like a study group. You learn more when everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, right? Different
Yeah.
perspectives and approaches lead to a better understanding.
So in this case, the weak supervisor and the strong student each have unique knowledge, and that helps the student grow more than if it was just learning from a similar AI.
Exactly. They called it complementary knowledge transfer, and it led to better performance than training on perfectly labeled data.
So this could change how we think about training AI. Instead of looking for the most advanced models to teach others, we should be focusing on building diverse teams of AI with different strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. It's all about embracing those differences to unlock AI's full potential.
This is fascinating. But now for the part that kind of makes me nervous. They talk about something called converging errors. As AI models become more advanced, their errors are actually becoming more similar. And they use this CAPA metric to measure just how alike those errors are.
It's definitely something to watch. If all of our most advanced AI systems are making the same kinds of mistakes, it creates vulnerabilities and limits their effectiveness.
Especially if we're relying on those AI judges to oversee everything, right? Who watches the watchmen?
Exactly. That's why understanding how those errors are converging and what's causing that trend is so important.
And that's where CAPA comes in. It's not just looking at whether the answers are right or wrong, but how the AI got to those answers, which helps to show the similarities in their errors.
Exactly. Think of it like looking beyond the grade on a test and analyzing the student's thought process to see where they went wrong. It gives us a deeper understanding of how these AI systems are working and where those shared vulnerabilities might be.
This is already a lot to take in. I feel like we're just scratching the surface here. Let's take a pause for now, and we'll be back in a bit to explore more of this research with you. I'm still thinking about those AI judges and how they might be showing favoritism.
It is a fascinating concept. In the research you said, they didn't give the AI judges tiny robes and gavels, though. They used something called MMLU Pro. It's like a giant standardized test for AI covering all sorts of subjects.
So they gave these AIs a pop quiz and then had other AIs grade their work. That's pretty clever.
And it is. They had the models answer questions in two ways, multiple choice and open-ended, so they could compare how the AIs did in structured and unstructured settings.
Gotcha. So they could see if an AI aced the multiple choice, but maybe struggle to explain their reasoning in the open-ended questions.
Exactly, and that's where the AI judges came in. They were tasked with evaluating the open-ended answers from the other AI models, but without knowing the correct answers themselves.
Oh, so it's kind of like how AI in the real world has to make decisions without having all the information.
Exactly, and it let the researchers see how the judges' own biases might affect their evaluations.
Okay, so tell me, were these AI judges tough graders?
Well, it really depended on the judge and who they were evaluating. Remember that QM 2.572B instruct judge, the one that favored the similar model? Well, that wasn't just a one-time thing. The research showed that across the board, AI judges consistently gave higher scores to models that shared similar functions or architectures.
Interesting. So it's not just about getting the answer right or wrong, it's about how they got there. And the AI judges were more likely to pass an AI if it thought like them, even if the answer wasn't perfect.
That's a good way to put it. And the researchers did a ton of statistical analysis to make sure this wasn't just random. They found this affinity bias was real, even when they accounted for how accurate the models being judged actually were.
That's kind of scary. It really shows how important diversity is in AI. If we're only creating AI that thinks alike, we're limiting their potential and probably building in some serious blind spots.
I agree completely. If all our AI is trained on the same data, built with the same architectures, and evaluated by the same judges, we'll end up with a narrow and probably flawed view of the world. We need AI that can think outside the box, challenge our assumptions, and offer different perspectives.
Which brings us back to that idea of AI learning from each other. If we encourage those weak supervisor AIs to teach models that are different from them, maybe we can help break out of this similarity cycle.
It's a promising approach, and the research gives us some really interesting insights into how this complementary knowledge transfer works.
I'm listening. What's the secret to good AI teaching?
It's not just about the weaker AI teaching the stronger one directly. It's about the unique knowledge that the weak supervisor has, even though it might not be as capable overall. When the stronger model trains on those annotations, it's able to absorb that complementary knowledge, and that leads to big improvements in its performance.
So even though the teacher AI isn't perfect, it still gets valuable insights that help the student AI see the problem from a different angle.
Exactly. And sometimes this way of transferring knowledge even worked better than training on perfectly labeled data, which is supposed to be the gold standard in AI training.
Wow. So we're talking about a more efficient and effective way to train AI just by tapping into the different kinds of knowledge that already exist in these models. It's like creating an AI think tank where different minds come together to solve problems.
I like that analogy. It highlights how important it is to go beyond just building bigger and more complex AI. We need to think about how we can connect them, let them share their knowledge, and learn from each other's strengths.
It's about building a stronger AI ecosystem where those differences make them better, not weaker.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But now let's talk about something we haven't discussed yet, those converging errors we mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Even if we can make AI more diverse, we still have to figure out what to do about these increasingly similar errors, especially if those errors are being made by AI that's doing important jobs.
It's a critical challenge, and to solve it, we need to go beyond just looking at how accurate AI is.
So you're saying two models can get the same answer, right? But they might get there in completely different ways, and those differences could show us where there might be problems.
Exactly. We need to develop ways of evaluating AI that can show the details of how AI reasons, the steps it takes to reach a conclusion, and the knowledge it's using.
So instead of just looking at the final score, we need to see the AI's work, understand how it's thinking, and make sure it's not just getting lucky or using bad logic.
That's a great way to put it. We can't just treat AI like a mysterious black box. We need to understand how they make decisions. Then we can spot those hidden biases and errors that we might miss otherwise.
It sounds like we need to be AI psychologists helping them figure out their thought processes and find those unhealthy patterns.
Maybe, but really this need for transparency is essential for building trust in AI. If we don't understand how they make decisions, we can't really trust them to make the right ones.
So diversity, transparency, and looking beyond simple accuracy, those are some important things to keep in mind when we're building more reliable and trustworthy AI. But what about those converging errors? Are we going to see all AI fall into the same traps eventually?
It's a valid concern, but I think this research also points to a possible solution: designing AI that thinks differently on purpose.
Now that's interesting. How do we build AI that breaks the mold, challenges the status quo, and avoids those common mistakes?
Well, one way is to try out different architectures. Right now, the most popular architecture for large language models is something called a transformer network. It's really powerful, but it might also be part of the problem with this convergence.
So we might need to completely rethink how AI is built, try new ways of processing information and structuring these models.
Exactly. Instead of just making small changes to the current model, we need to consider big redesigns that process information in totally different ways. Another thing we can do is be more careful about the data we use to train these systems.
Are you saying that if we want AI to think differently, we need to give it different information?
Exactly. Right now, a lot of AI training uses huge data sets that come from the internet. But the internet reflects our own biases and limitations. What if we created datasets that show a wider range of perspectives, cultures, and ways of thinking?
So instead of just copying our own world, we give AI the chance to learn from a more diverse and bigger set of information.
Exactly. And that could mean using data from different languages and cultures, or even data that challenges existing biases and stereotypes.
It's like giving AI a well-rounded education, a chance to see the world through many different lenses. We're talking about making AI not just smart, but wise.
I love that. And I think this is a good place to take a break. In the last part of our deep dive, we'll talk about some of the ethical implications of this research, and we'll explore some things we can do to make sure AI stays a force for good in the world.
Sounds good. Looking forward to wrapping this up with you. We've covered some really complex stuff about AI oversight, from AI judges to AI teachers. There's a lot to think about as these systems get more and more advanced.
Absolutely. And as AI starts doing more in areas like healthcare finance, even criminal justice, the stakes just get higher. We can't just focus on making AI smarter. We have to make sure it's making decisions that are fair, unbiased, and, line up with our values.
Yeah, but that brings up a question. Whose values are we talking about? How do we even choose which values to build into these systems?
It's a tough question, and it needs us to think about more than just the technical side of things. We need ethicists, social scientists, legal experts, and most importantly, input from the people who are going to be affected by these systems. They need to be involved right from the start.
So we need more people contributing to the conversation about AI, not just the engineers and scientists.
Exactly. It's about moving away from a top-down approach to developing AI and going towards something more inclusive and collaborative. And transparency is a big part of that. We need to be able to see the values that are in these systems, understand the data they're trained on, and challenge those values when they clash with our own.
Oh, it's like we need a bill of rights for AI, make sure they're working for us, not the other way around. But even if everyone has good intentions, can we really avoid those converging errors? What if AI just learns in a way that makes it naturally pick up the same biases, no matter how diverse the data is, or how we build it?
It's a good point. But I think the research we've been talking about shows us something interesting. If we know that AI is making similar mistakes, we can design systems that work against that trend.
So instead of just trying to get rid of bias, we can actually use it in a positive way.
Kinda. We can encourage the development of AI that challenges the usual way of thinking, explores different solutions, and makes us question our own assumptions. It's about having this tension between what the AI learns and how we shape its development.
It sounds like we're saying that AI isn't just a neutral tool, it's always going to reflect the values of the people who create it. But we can influence those values in a good way.
Exactly. We can build AI that matches the future we want to see, a future where technology helps people. And to do that, we need to start by learning ourselves. The more we understand about AI, the better we can have these important conversations.
So knowledge is power, especially when it comes to AI. But what else can we do? It feels like such a huge and complicated problem.
It is, but we're not helpless. We can demand more from the companies and groups that are building these systems. We can push for transparency, accountability, and ethics right from the start.
So we need to make sure our voices are heard, support people who are doing AI the right way, and hold those who aren't accountable.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, it's all about having open and honest conversations about how we want AI to be a part of our lives. This isn't just for tech people or politicians. Everyone needs to be a part of this.
You're right. The future of AI isn't set in stone. We get to shape it, and discussions like this are a great place to start.
I agree. By understanding the risks and the amazing possibilities, we can work together to make AI that really benefits humanity.
Well said. Thanks so much for walking us through this research and helping us understand all of this.
It was my pleasure. And to our listener, thanks for sharing this interesting paper with us. Keep asking those tough questions. That's how we build a better future with AI.
Exactly. Until next time, keep diving deep.